The warmth of the Seattle sunlight poured down on our villa in Queen Anne's neighborhood, making the whole house sparkle. I stood on the second-floor balcony overlooking the front lawn, where the grass was green and dotted with colorful flowers, and Emily was watering the garden, wearing a white dress and looking pretty in the warm sunshine. I couldn't help but marvel at how fortunate I was to be able to start a family with such a beautiful and intelligent woman. "Michael, what are you looking at?" Emily waved at me, her smile as warm as the sun. "Admiring you, my dear." I smiled in response, my heart once again proud of my happy life. This is our life, seemingly carefree and full of sunshine. I am a middle-aged Seattle attorney who has achieved great success in my career through a combination of intelligence and insight. Emily is a respected counselor who has won the hearts of countless clients with her innate charm and empathy. We are the same age and look alike, and met at a party 10 years ago. I was deeply attracted by her beautiful appearance, and she was also impressed by my manners and humor. Soon after, we had a sweet relationship and got married in less than a year. After our marriage, we purchased this villa in a prestigious neighborhood and started our happy life here. As a middle-aged couple, we have enough money and social resources to live a life of abundance and comfort. Every year we go on exotic vacations to places of interest or to the beach. We own a number of expensive sports cars and are proud to have attended many high-profile social events. Our friends are often envious of our life and describe us as the perfect couple. But it was on a normal night that our perfect life cracked. We had dinner that night and went back to the bedroom. A few hours later, I was awakened by Emily's sleep talking. I was half asleep, half awake, and I was disturbed by her calls. "Daniel." "Oh, Daniel." She called out softly, a touch of passion and fascination in her voice. My eyes snapped open. I blinked a few times and looked around before realizing I was in my bedroom with Emily lying on her side next to me, her eyes closed tightly as if she were in the middle of an erotic dream. But I was shocked and horrified by the name she was calling out, the name of our good friend Daniel Harris. I was stunned and instantly sobered. We were such good friends, and Daniel was a handsome, intelligent man, but I didn't realize Emily was dreaming about him. I couldn't help but begin to wonder about the relationship between her and Daniel. Could they be? No, how could that be possible? I almost laughed out loud. I turned on my side and stared hard at the sleeping Emily, whose face was so innocent and serene in the dim night light, as peaceful as an angel. How could I ever doubt my wife? I must have been paranoid. I tried to calm myself down, but I realized that I couldn't get rid of the hidden doubts in my heart. I began to think about Emily's behavior over the past year, trying to pick up on some of the signs that she was acting out of character. It was true that lately she had become a bit perfunctory about her work, often forgetting our date days. Sometimes she didn't come home after 9 p.m., but she was very reticent, often citing her busy schedule as the reason for her absence. But what bothers me most is that lately she always reacts to her cell phone. Even at home, she keeps it with her at all times, fearing that she might miss something. My mind was racing, and a horrible suspicion was taking shape in my mind. Was Emily seeing another man? But on second thought, how could that be possible? She's always been loyal and trustworthy. How could she have done something so out of character? But what about her suspicious behavior? I was in deep confusion and pain, tossing and turning, unable to sleep all night. From that early morning, I began to secretly watch Emily's every move. As the days passed, I realized that I had become so guarded and suspicious, which made me feel ashamed and remorseful. A seemingly happy marriage, just because of an unintentional dream words and cracks, began to falter. But the lingering doubt in my heart also prompted me to continue to investigate. Over the next few weeks, I began to secretly track Emily's whereabouts like a professional detective. I secretly recorded her daily movements and analyzed her cell phone and email records, hoping to find clues that she was cheating on me. At first, her every move was normal, and I didn't notice any suspicious signs. But as time went on, I gradually realized something puzzling. For example, there were times when Emily rushed home after 9 p.m., always with the excuse that she was stuck in a traffic jam or working late. But according to her phone records and cell phone GPS, she wasn't even at work or on the road those nights, but wandering around an unnamed bed and breakfast. What's even more concerning is that she often receives text messages from an unknown number late at night, always with ambiguous phrases such as, "I miss you," "I can't wait to see you again," and so on. When I tried to ask, she always forced a smile and was vague. I became desperate to realize an unacceptable truth. Emily had probably done something wrong to me. Although I still couldn't confirm whether or not the actual act of cheating had taken place, her erratic behavior seemed to confirm my worst suspicions. Over the course of a few weeks, I was completely alone and miserable. I began to loathe everything about Emily, even her laughter at the dinner table or her humming in the shower. It all became a show of hypocrisy and pretense in my eyes. My mood goes up and down like a roller coaster every day. Sometimes I feel guilty and blame myself for my suspicions. Maybe it's just my paranoia, but more often than not, the feelings of doubt, betrayal, and pain that swirl around my head drive me crazy. Lying in bed at night, I always listen to the sound of Emily's even breathing, but I cannot sleep all night. I can't help but think back to all the moments of our love years ago. Was the small, delicate, and full of fun Emily just a dream of mine? Did I never recognize her inside? I even hated myself for my devotion to my work. Were the nights I spent at work the cause of Emily's infidelity? Did I give her too little love and affection? All kinds of self-examination began to eat away at my heart, and I found myself in a kind of unprecedented loneliness and confusion. That's when I stumbled across some alarming emails in Emily's email account. She was in a rather intimate correspondence with someone named Bear, and the content of the emails was intertwined with sweet nothings and subtle sexual innuendos. To add insult to injury, when I analyzed the headers and signatures of the emails, I discovered that Bear was the pseudonym of my friend Daniel Harris. I finally had irrefutable proof that Emily was cheating on me with one of my best friends. All the signs were pointing in the right direction, and I had been blind to them. I felt so weak that I almost fell to the ground. An unparalleled sense of betrayal washed over me as Emily, the wife I had loved and devoted my life to, turned her back on me with one of my closest friends. All the beautiful memories of the past turned into hot tears in my heart, and I finally realized the complete pain and disappointment. I couldn't stand being lied to any longer. So one rainy night, I decided to take action and expose the relationship for what it was. It was going to cost me in the end, but I was so desperate that I couldn't care less. When the weekend comes around, our family usually hosts a small family gathering at our house and invites some friends and family over. Last week was one of those nights, and I finally decided to take action and reveal Emily and Daniel's secret. It was a beautiful sunny day. Everything seemed to be the same as always. Emily was busy in the kitchen preparing all kinds of food, and I was at the door welcoming the guests, Daniel and his wife Amanda, who had come to visit that day. When Daniel walked through the door, I could hardly resist punching him in the face. This guy, who claimed to be my best friend, was secretly seducing my wife. He was dressed in casual clothes, slightly overweight, but still with the handsome profile he used to have. Looking at his seemingly harmless smile, my heart was filled with endless anger and a sense of betrayal. The party went on as usual, with everyone chatting over a glass of red wine. I smiled and acted like nothing was wrong, but I was watching Emily and Daniel's every move. I soon realized that there were some unusual interactions between them. Either Emily's face was tinged with excitement when Daniel entered the room, or Daniel's eyes were filled with a different kind of emotion when he talked to her. I almost lost control of my emotions and stabbed through everything. But I held back, deciding to wait until the last moment of the climax and then give the two a heavy blow to the head. Just as the party was winding down, someone suggested that we all take a picture together. So we stood in a neat line in front of the fireplace. I deliberately pulled Daniel to my side and Emily stood across from me. While everyone was smiling, I suddenly pressed the shutter and at the same time pressed the detonator that I had prepared for a long time. "Emily, what the hell are you and Daniel up to?" I roared out like a beast unchained, questioning the two across from me in a stern voice. "I found the emails between you. I already know everything." In an instant, the atmosphere of the whole room suddenly froze, like being poured with a pot of ice water. The smiles on everyone's faces all disappeared, replaced by extreme shock and amazement. Emily was frozen in place like she was struck by lightning, her face as white as paper, while Daniel's expression was between shock and panic. "Michael, what do you mean by that?" "We didn't," Emily stammered, trying to explain something, but I cut her off. "Liar. How long are you going to argue?" I said through gritted teeth. "I saw your intimate emails. I saw Daniel give you that bear alias. I didn't think you'd do such a thing. And you're a hypocrite, and you should pay for what you've done." I looked around and everyone else was staring at us in disbelief, as if they couldn't believe what was happening. Daniel's wife Amanda had her hands over her mouth and appeared to be on the verge of fainting. My friends were staring at each other in disbelief and didn't know how to react. "You? What the hell are you talking about? What kind of email is this?" Daniel finally came back to his senses and tried to defend himself, but I interrupted him mercilessly. "Shut up. I don't want to hear any more from you, traitor." I snapped at him, then slammed my fist into his cheek. "Ah!" Daniel screamed out in agony, covering his face. Amanda, beside him, let out a yelp and then started bawling. "Michael, have you lost your mind?" Emily exclaimed as she seemed to finally get over her shock. "This is all in your head. Daniel is just my friend. There is no evidence between us whatsoever." "You're bullshitting me. I have proof." I yanked Emily's phone and forced open the email program. "Look at this. How long do you have to argue?" I mercilessly displayed the intimate emails between Bear and Emily on my cell phone, one after the other telling of the explicit words of love and secret encounters between the two lovers who were secretly in love. There was a gasp of surprise from the guests, who looked at the content of the emails with disbelief. "What the hell is going on with Daniel? What are you doing to me?" Amanda cried, questioning her husband, who bowed his head in silence. Emily's face was completely distorted at that moment, as if her last shroud had been torn off by life. Her eyes were fierce and indignant, as if she no longer cared about the disguise of a good woman. "Yes, that's it. I admit it. I had an encounter with Daniel. Are you satisfied, Michael?" She suddenly stormed out, her words coming out of her mouth. "Yes, I was indeed seduced by Daniel, by his stunning body and his passion. What about you? How can you be desirable when all you do is work and work and work and work and be a wooden husband all these years?" I was shocked and almost overwhelmed by her frankness. We confessed our pains and secrets in front of our guests, turning what was supposed to be a nice family gathering into a ridiculous farce. "You bitch. I'd rather get a divorce today than go back to being with scum like you," I shouted angrily, and for a moment, my reasoning was overwhelmed by hatred and anger. "Bah, no way." Emily snatched the phone from my hand and slammed it down so hard that it fell apart on the spot. "Forget it, Mike. That's all there is to it." Daniel finally spoke up, wiping the blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, spreading his hands and saying, "Calm down, you two. We're both upset with each other. But there's no point in arguing any further. Now we have to get out. You two." I yelled at Daniel in a frenzy, not treating him as a friend. I was completely out of my mind, filled with anger and humiliation at being lied to. The last vestiges of my sanity were almost gone. "Let's all go. It seems futile to stay here now." One of my friends finally spoke up and led the group out of the scene in a hurry, leaving me, Emily, Daniel, and Amanda staring at each other in disbelief. At this moment, the four of us seemed to be in a messy battlefield, and the argument we had just had was like a nuclear explosion that had turned our close relationship with each other into ashes. The confrontation that night at the family reunion was a hammer blow that shattered the last vestiges of illusion and shame between Emily and me. After that, our relationship was never the same. In the weeks that followed, we lived under the same roof as strangers, with little or no communication between us, and I simply ignored Emily's occasional attempts to explain or justify her behavior. I was too disillusioned and desperate to listen to her excuses. Finally, one night, we parted ways and went to our separate bedrooms. I looked over my shoulder and said to Emily, "I'm divorcing you." That was the first thing I said to her after a long Cold War. Emily didn't make a sound, as if she had already expected this result. She just looked at me with a sadness in her eyes. "Well, if that's what you want," she said halfway through. The next day, I contacted my longtime attorney friend Keith and asked him to represent me fully in the divorce proceedings. Given Emily's adulterous behavior, I was justified in asking for a more favorable property distribution. After months of hard negotiation, a deal was reached where Emily managed to keep a small portion of her cash and investments, and I got our mansion in Queen Anne's and most of our other real estate and assets. On the day of the final judgment, Emily just packed some bags and moved out of the house. She didn't say anything, just gave me one last haggard look at the door and drove away. As I stood in the yard and watched her leave, I was filled with a strange feeling of emptiness and relief. Thus, our married life came to an end. The combination of longing and dream, flesh and spirit, was thus pierced and torn apart by her own hands. I lost everything from her: her love, her warmth, and all my expectations of her. For the next few days, I suffered the shock of divorce. Often, in the dead of night, I would find myself sitting in the yard, staring at the window panes of the villa glistening in the moonlight, remembering the past with an empty heart. Sometimes I would even cry out uncontrollably, like a helpless child. I gradually realized that the betrayal of marriage not only hurt our bodies, but also cut something deep inside each other. Those buried in the bottom of the heart of the fantasy and expectations, like a handful of fresh water springs up and then weeping away, ultimately leaving only a piece of withering and cracks. I grew accustomed to the heaviness and emptiness as the new normal. All day long I lived in this silent, sprawling house, coming home from work and sitting alone in the living room. The living room was so empty that my footsteps sometimes echoed. Once upon a time, this living room was filled with Emily's laughter and my jokes. She would sit cross-legged on the sofa, correcting her students' work, or reading aloud from a book by the fireplace. I'd be reading a stack of paperwork or sipping a glass of wine in front of a shelf, chatting with her about our work. We were so in love and sympathetic. Now, I'm the only one left to savor the warmth of it all. It was as if a part of my life had been taken away from me from one moment to the next, and I was left in a state of disrepair. Some people sympathetically say that I have gained a victory in terms of reputation and money, but I often laugh at myself and wonder, what victory is that? How much warmth and comfort can money and real estate bring? Although the legal judgment gave me most of the property, my life was at an all-time low for a long time after the divorce. During the day, I could barely hold down a job, but once I got home from work, I could no longer hold up the image of a professional lawyer. I would sit on the single sofa in the living room, staring out of the window at the sunset, and feel as empty as if I were staring into the void. Sometimes I will pick up a bottle of wine hard to pour a few mouthfuls, trying to paralyze the sadness and indignation. But alcohol cannot give me any comfort. On the contrary, it will only make me more awake to realize that I am being completely swallowed by loneliness and betrayal of the haze. On more than one occasion, I would sit on my bed with Emily's belongings in my hands and tears would come to my eyes. A silk scarf, a dress, a tube of perfume. Every bit of her life was left in our former residence, like a sharp steel needle, tearing my trauma apart mercilessly. I often subconsciously opened the cell phone to look through our past intimate text messages. Looking at those words of love and sweet words, an irresistible feeling of sadness would come rushing in, almost drowning me. There were times when I even opened Emily's makeup bag and took out her lipstick and mascara one by one. When I was doing this kind of almost crazy behavior, I could not help but see her carefully made-up face, the woman I used to cherish and take care of with all my might. When I think of where she is now, whether she is well or not, my heart will surge a throbbing in pain, almost suffocating pain. I began to doubt my life, questioning whether there was really such a thing as eternity and never leaving in this world. Married life has nourished me and traumatized me. Just when I thought I had been blessed with eternal happiness, it was so easily shattered and evaporated. I began to fear the intimacy and trust between people, and did not dare and would not easily entrust anything to anyone. Because any intimate relationship will eventually turn into a farce, nakedly displaying your vulnerability and pain in front of your fellow travelers. I began to hate myself for being so attached to Emily. I was too enamored with her, and that's why I got myself into such a desperate situation. I should have realized her hypocrisy and perfunctory nature instead of blindly worshiping her as my heart's desire. During these lonely and confusing days, my mind and body were torn by self-doubt and hatred. Sometimes I would subconsciously walk into Emily's dressing room and just stand there, conflicted. What should I do? Should I let go of the past and move on? Or do I just fall into the abyss? I began to lose all hope in life. Every night I would toss and turn, unable to sleep, and wake up a few hours later in a haze of smoke at the foot of my bed. There were times when I even felt the urge to commit suicide. If I was really devastated, maybe it would be a relief. Just when I was about to fall into the abyss, my savior appeared. It was an ordinary morning. I was reading the newspaper with a cup of black coffee in my hand. A small advertisement suddenly caught my attention. Dedicated to providing emotional counseling and life help to people who are suffering from marital crisis, the organization is now recruiting volunteers from the community. That's what the advertisement said. Looking at this small line of words, my heart suddenly sent a dull ripple. I began to think of my own painful experience of marital betrayal, the physical and emotional pain that I had gone through, how I had suffered so much. And now this organization, which is dedicated to helping those who are in the same predicament. I can't help but feel like I've suddenly been awakened and found a new way out. The next day, I called the organization and volunteered to become a counselor. Thus, for the first time in my life, I took a small step towards a fresh start. Joining an organization dedicated to marital crisis counseling has definitely given me the opportunity to rediscover the meaning of my life. From the initial hesitation, to familiarizing myself with the work, to becoming actively interested in the cause, my mental state is improving little by little. My colleagues in the organization are warm-hearted and empathetic people. Many of them have been through marital crises and therefore have a special understanding of my situation. I received a lot of encouragement and support from them and learned a lot about counseling techniques and approaches. In the first few months, I basically worked as an intern counselor. My main task was to work at the hotline, answering calls from people seeking help, listening to them patiently, and giving them the necessary emotional comfort and advice. Once, I received a call from a woman named Nancy. She cried about her husband's years of domestic violence and infidelity, her words revealing desperation and helplessness. Listening to her confession, I almost burst into tears because what she was going through was so similar to what I was going through. Nancy, the first thing you need to believe right now is that none of this is your fault. I tried to keep my tone calm and said gently, "You didn't do anything wrong, your husband did. You need to be strong and put your own safety and well-being first." But I'm still in love with him. How can I leave him like this? Nancy choked, incoherent. Nancy, sometimes it's better to leave for a better tomorrow, I said. If you are still meant to be together, you may be able to get back together in the future through sincere communication and correcting your mistakes. But if you just keep moving forward, you'll only get into a worse and worse predicament. Yeah, maybe you're right. She finally let go, shedding tears of determination. This is just a small episode in the countless calls I have received for help. But it is this vivid example that makes me realize the prevalence of marital crisis and strengthens my determination to help these poor people. Soon, my focus shifted to field counseling. Every week, we organize small lectures or mutual support meetings and invite those in need to come to the field. Once, a middle-aged man named Jason spoke at a meeting about his wife's years of concealment and deception. When I heard his story, I couldn't help but think of how Emily had fooled and cheated on me for a long time a few years ago. So I told Jason about my own personal experience and the painful journey towards divorce. Jason, even if a marriage is betrayed and broken, it doesn't mean it's over. I said calmly, sometimes pain is just the beginning of a new life, a chance for fate to give us a new look at ourselves and a completely different path. And how did you come out of it afterward? Jason asked. It is this organization that has given me a second chance. I said sincerely, it is through helping others and empathizing with them that I realize there is so much more meaning and value in life. This sharing of personal experience has also helped me to recover from the haze of marital betrayal. Whenever I see the recipients regaining their confidence, I feel a deep sense of fulfillment and joy in my heart. I realize that I am benefiting others with practical actions and sending positive energy with empathy. This experience of wholeheartedly devoting myself to charity work has given my life a sense of meaning and purpose. I soon became a key member of the organization. My colleagues appreciated my work ethic and the sense of self-fulfillment I gained while giving. What touched me even more was that many of the recipients would affectionately call me Uncle Michael or Brother Michael when they left the organization and expressed their gratitude to me. These simple words were like the most sincere encouragement in the world and undoubtedly warmed my heart after the cold and wind. From the initial self-destruction to the present in the charity work to rekindle the hope of life, I have traveled through a rather tortuous journey. But it is this ordeal that has taught me the true meaning of looking at life and having compassion for those who are on the same path. I began to care for everyone around me with a sense of empathy for those who are suffering. Thus, in the midst of joy and harvest, my life finally began to have a vision and hope. The haze of anger and betrayal had not completely dissipated, but it had faded away. In its place was a sense of fulfillment of being needed by society and appreciated by others, a feeling that was slowly nourishing my tattered inner world. Through my long-term public service counseling work, I have come to realize that the complexity of marriage is not as simple as I once thought. Every couple is a unique individual, and the conflicts and cracks between them come from countless small reasons. Different ideas, differences in lifestyle, lack of communication, etc., which will eventually accumulate into a fatal trauma. It was these real-life examples that led me to re-examine my marriage with Emily with a more open and forgiving mind. I realized that Emily's betrayal did not happen overnight, but had been brewing for a long time. Maybe it was because I was too devoted to my career and neglected my family, which made her feel mentally lonely. Or maybe there were some conceptual differences and gaps between us, but we just hadn't communicated properly. I began to reflect on whether I was too hasty and arbitrary, and whether I should give Emily another chance to communicate and understand each other's psychological state. Maybe her cheating at that time was just a momentary impulse and mistake. If we can find the crux of the problem in time, with love and empathy to repair the rift, maybe the final result will not be so bad. However, it is futile to try to find a solution to the problem after the fact. As I always tell my clients, let bygones be bygones. What matters is the present and the future. I began to learn to use a more rounded heart to look at life's setbacks, to pity those who were like us once lost and disappointed people. Gradually, my anger and pain towards Emily began to dissipate. Whenever I saw her in a client's story, I would subconsciously feel a wave of compassion and forgiveness. Yes, she had failed our love and made me suffer. But that was just a momentary lapse, not her nature. As in the case of many extramarital affairs, they often stem from impulse and blindness. All the hard and soft conditions around you are suddenly achieved. The temptation comes and is confused by the moment of confusion. By the time they react, they have already missed the chance to return to the shore. Life is so short, who can say that you will never make a mistake? Even I myself have often neglected my family in the past and devoted myself to my career. Isn't this also a kind of failure and betrayal of feelings? I began to look at those who had suffered through marital betrayal with a kinder eye. Often, they did not intend to make a mistake, but were just confused and impulsive. What is important is how the person reflects, corrects, and embraces life again afterward. It was this forgiveness and understanding that allowed me to slowly put my resentment and anger towards Emily behind me. I began to hope with all my heart that she was doing well and had learned from her mistakes. Maybe one day we could celebrate each other's happiness as friends. Being kind and forgiving does not mean abandoning principles, but simply having a higher culture. As a philosopher once said, you should look at someone 3 times before you can make up your mind. The first time, from your own point of view. The second time, from the other person's point of view. And the third time, from the point of view of a good person. I wish I could do just that and learn to look at life's changes from a higher perspective. Although life is difficult, we should not be trapped in the prison of bitterness and resentment. It is only by maintaining a tolerant mind that we can be more open to light and hope. Life is too short to have fun. Emily has given me more than 10 years of companionship and warmth, and the gift of this memory will remain in my heart forever. But at the same time, life is so wonderful and colorful that it is worth pursuing and discovering. To let go of the past is to embrace the future. This is what I have learned from my years of public service. As I get older, I am learning to maintain a work-life balance. While philanthropy is still my main focus, I'm starting to make time to enjoy life. Sometimes I would drive aimlessly through the streets of Seattle. As the sun sets, an orange-red glow fills the city. I often walk along the elevated streets, gazing through the windows at the silhouettes of the ocean and the peaks, and a sense of peace and serenity overtakes me. I like to play a few oldies for myself at times like this and let the music surround me in the car. Suddenly, I would marvel at the smallness and brevity of life, but also realize the beauty of pursuing good things. Without realizing it, my circle of friends has been expanding. I have made many new friends through my interaction with people from all walks of life. I admire some of them for their spirit and their witty experiences. We often have small gatherings to talk about old times over a glass of wine. The journey of life is certainly rough and bumpy, but it is also these setbacks and struggles that make the journey of life seem so wonderful. Whenever I listen to my friends reveal their hearts, I am convinced by the ups and downs, and I cherish the precious moments of living in the present. Gradually, I began to focus on other aspects of my life. Sometimes on weekends, I would drive to some secluded spots in the mountains and go hiking or fishing there. Being in the pristine, verdant environment and listening to the birds singing and streams flowing, I would let go of my heart and forget about all the complexities of the city for a while. These times have taught me to be still and enjoy life. When I sit alone by the stream with a fishing rod in my hand, I often feel a sense of peace that I have never experienced before. All the hardships and struggles of the past seem to have vanished in this moment. My body and mind have never been so relaxed and relieved. Life has a long way to go. We should all learn to find beauty in the ordinary. As the old saying goes, happiness is often all around us, but we often ignore it. Looking back, I can't help but marvel at the marital crisis I went through, which gave me an unprecedented realization and enhancement. Without the deepest shadows in my life, I would not have been able to appreciate the warmth of the sun and the vitality of life. Only after experiencing the dark and bone-chilling despair, I can cherish everything nowadays. Only after experiencing the pain and hardship, I can pity and care for those who are on the same path. My life now has long resumed the old life of the car in front of the horse, but has undergone a radical change. I have learned to cherish tolerance and forgiveness. This may be the most valuable kind of wealth in life. I often think of Emily's face that used to haunt me. Although our marriage is over, the warmth and companionship she gave me for more than 10 years is the most precious gift in my life. And this attitude of tolerance and gratitude has subtly influenced my views and attitudes towards all people. I am no longer as stubborn and paranoid as I was back then, but have an understanding heart in every aspect. Thus, without realizing it, my life began to take on a new color. That disheartening and nightmarish marital crisis is now just a hurdle in my life's journey. But it is this invaluable experience that has rebuilt me into a more resilient, forgiving, and empathetic person. Gradually, I was also infected by this force of tolerance and love. When a friend or acquaintance suffers a setback in life, I will take the initiative to lend a helping hand and inspire them with warm words to regain confidence. I am happy to pass on this valuable experience and philosophy of life to others. I can say that everything I do nowadays is to spread love and tolerance. Just as Emily gave me warmth when I was at a low point in my life, I hope to bring more positive energy to the world through my words and actions. There is no better way to realize the beauty and meaning of life than to walk through it yourself. I have come out of the despair I once felt, and I have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations. Now, I cherish the opportunity to embrace life again. The things that used to break my heart have never gone away. But at least today, I have learned to stop being obsessive and angry and to face the past with tolerance and forgiveness. In the last few decades of my life, I hope to be able to contribute more and to warm the hearts of others with more love and empathy. Maybe that's the best thing that's happened to me in the first half of my life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.